This is George Senda of Pittsburgh. Well, last night both Kathy and I saw something incredible in the skies over Martinez, California, where we live. I reported it to the National UFO Reporting Center last night, and I got awakened today by, of all things, and something I never thought I'd get, a call from Peter Davenport, the director of the National UFO Reporting Center. He called me briefly saying he was pressed for time and talked to me about our sighting and asked me if we'd be willing to talk about it on the Jeff Rense radio program, and I said sure. And I said, do you want Kathy on there too, because she saw it before I did? And he said yeah. So around 7:30 the program called us and we both went on the air. Now, I recorded this with Audacity. I'm not trying to infringe on Jeff Rense's copyright, but I want people to hear the call, and I left a little tag on the part 2 because they talk about us and then talk about a similar story in Phoenix, Arizona, which I think was at the time of the Phoenix Lights. So I'm going to click on the MP3 that I recorded and just let it run. And this will be part 1 of our black triangle sighting last night, Thursday, October 8th at 11 o'clock p.m., about 2.5 blocks from our house, and the UFO was about 2 blocks over to our immediate right, flying down the main street of the city by the county jail, courthouse, district attorney's office. Mostly commercial buildings there. There's one apartment building there, but the rest of it's all city offices. So here goes, and when this is done, I'll do a video of part 2. Have a great evening and watch the skies.
Glad to have you all along tonight. Peter's here, and we have 2 more folks to talk to. Okay, Peter.
You know, we do a very, very interesting report, and this is even more recent than the one we just discussed with John and Kathleen. Last night, very near, or in the city of Martinez, California, which is, I gather, out near Concord, just east of Oakland and Berkeley. A couple were driving. I believe they were driving. Their report is available from our homepage for anybody who's online and would like to read it. But they saw one of these things that are being reported to me on a regular basis, a very, very large triangular craft moving very slowly and very quietly. I think it had some lights on it, but I'll leave that to the witnesses to describe for our audience. Why don't we go to George and his girlfriend and let them share with our audience what it was they saw just last night, the 8th of October.
Hi, George. Welcome.
Hi, well, it must be Kathy night, because Kathy's behind me.
Well, is it a K or a C?
K.
I forgot.
I mean, if you need to talk to her.
Very good.
She was driving our Prius. We were coming back from Walmart about 3 blocks from our house. We live at the end of a dead-end street in downtown Martinez. Martinez is 20 miles from Walnut Creek, 10 miles from Concord, and 30 miles from San Francisco. You can't go any further because you wind up driving into the bay. We're right by the Benicia Bridge. So
is Pleasanton in your area?
No, Pleasanton's the other direction going toward Fremont.
I see. Okay.
So anyway, I'm a former member of NICAP. I used to correspond and talk to Donald Quixote's secretary when I was 10 years old. I was a NICAP member at 10.
10? Wow.
Yeah, I was a member of Civil Air Patrol as a child. I know aircraft. I know stars. I have books on aircraft. I was a military writer at one time. I know the difference between an aircraft, a drone, a helicopter. In any event, Kathy was driving the car, and I was sitting there in our Prius with the windows open. Could hear everything dead quiet. We're about a half a block or block from the local park, which is right at the end of our street. And she says, look at that. I look out the window, and I said, what the hell is that? Above the trees, about 100 to 200 feet, going over Main Street. Now, we have the county jail here, the county courthouse, and right over the hill from it is the edge of the Shell refinery, which takes up a fair percentage of Martinez, was this huge black triangular UFO. It blotted out the sky. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have my iPad with me, and I just got my nightlight, ironically, today for it in the mail. And this thing had 3 lights on it. It was not a triangle like a little triangle. It was more like one of those stretched out triangles like the one Art Bell said. I'm not saying this to emulate Art Bell by any means. Art Bell saw, sorry. This thing had 1 blinking light at the top and 2 stationary lights on the bottom. There was no noise. It moved very slowly up the street over the main street of the city. And
how scary is that? How creepy is that? You're talking 250 feet maybe.
Yeah, and I was surprised it didn't hit a building or something because the jail is 6 or 7 stories tall. We continued down the street very slowly. We're both looking at it, and we turned the corner to go to the end of the street where the park is. They just renovated the park. They cut down a lot of the trees so we can still see it. My building is next door. There's a playground for the church up the street. The church office is in my building, which is a 3-story building. This thing was at least 6 stories up, 5 or 6 stories, taller than my building, my apartment building, which covers an entire city block. And suddenly it disappeared. Now, I called the police, I called the sheriff, I called every news station in the Bay Area, and nobody's received a report. KGO took my name and phone number. They were interested. I called the local paper. They were interested. But apparently we're the only ones that saw this.
Now, when you say it disappeared,
but it wasn't a drone.
George, when it disappeared, did it just, you're looking at it one moment and the next moment it's gone?
Yeah, like it winked out.
They just switched on their cloaking and it was not visible.
So.
Or it took off awfully fast and you couldn't track it with your eye.
No, it wasn't that. There was no Doppler shift or movement. It was just floating real quietly. No noise, no engine noise, no nothing. And then the next minute it disappeared.
Take a guess.
And I said, where did it go?
Was this an equilateral triangle?
It's those weird ones that don't look a little like when you play in the band. It's not that. It's the one that's stretched out, like somebody stretched it. It's got one point and then things both on both ends. I'm not a describe. That's an equilateral triangle, I guess so.
In other words, it's half boomerang shape. It's been pulled out.
More like a boomerang with a point, with 2 points in each end.
All right, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. How long did you observe it?
About 2 minutes.
That's a nice, healthy dose.
Drive very slowly, like 2.5, 3 blocks, and when we made the turn and got to the end of the street by the park, by the playground, it was gone. It disappeared.
You said it had a light on the top and 2 on the bottom.
The light on top was blinking white.
And the ones on the bottom?
Were just stationary lights. They weren't moving at all.
Were they white? Also white? All right. Now this, Peter, for him to see on top of this craft suggests that it wasn't all that thick, and it was away from them a little bit, or you can't see on top. So
they must have been looking at it edge on to be able to see lights on both.
Yeah, we couldn't see the bottom. I couldn't see any structures and nothing. All I saw was a big black mass with 3 lights on it. But it was moving like a balloon, and I don't think it was a balloon or a drone. It was just floating. It was just I wouldn't say it was floating. It was moving real slow.
There was no balloon.
No.
But
it covered the entire length of the sky. I mean, the sky was overcast last night, and I couldn't see the sky. I couldn't see the buildings. All I could see
wait. You had, city lights, overcast. You had a little bit of a haze, gray behind it then.
Yeah, it's
so
yucky.
it was even more visible because of the backdrop behind it.
Normally you can see the lights sometimes of the refinery, you can see the lights of the jail, they have warning lights for aircraft, you can see the lights of the courthouse. Couldn't see any of that. It's like somebody just put a big black curtain over the sky and put 3 lights in it.
It was that big, it actually covered the sky.
Yeah, and all I could see was the trees and this thing moving along.
Were you scared at any time?
No, I have 450 paranormal books in my book collection. I'm used to reading.
Well, a 10-year-old Nightcap member is pretty amazing. That makes you a Class A.
I lived in Washington, D.C., and I started reading UFO Investigator, and that's part of how I got interested in the paranormal. But
this is
I used to talk to Don Keogh on the phone, and his secretary sent me letters. So
how nice.
But I joined Nightcap at 10.
Did you ever do any investigations for Nightcap George?
No, I was a little kid. We moved around a lot.
Yeah, so you were a member or a participant in some capacity anyway.
Yeah, well, I read all of Don Keel's books, and we talked on the phone. He was very nice. His secretary was nice, and they would send me letters. And I've had 2 UFO sightings in the past. One was in the Civil Air Patrol. We saw 500 of us saw a giant craft over the Sierra. We were looking for downplane. The Air Force told it was Venus. My wing commander almost got fired from the Air Force because he raised so much hell about it. He said, "You insulted my wing." All my members, myself, all the volunteers, we know the thing hovered over us for minutes and disappeared. It's a big silver UFO. And I'm not making this report to make myself known or anything. I know what we saw.
No,
I don't know what it was.
We hear you loud and clear. Kathy, can we talk to her for a second?
Yeah. Here you go.
Hi, Kathy. I'm Jeff, and Peter is here. Now,
Hi, Kathy.
When you saw this thing covering the sky over you, you knew immediately that it wasn't supposed to be there, I assume, and it was. Were you scared? This sounds like it could be scary. Not that I'm a chicken, but I mean that's a huge piece of machinery.
Well, when I saw it, I was, my mind said, well, what the hell is that? And I thought to myself, is there, is this a regular, aircraft, or has the Air Force come out with some, something, or is
Sure.
it something else?
Yeah.
And it's, and the shape of it, the lights, it really struck home to me. As a matter of fact, there was a, oh God, I'm trying to think of the name of the show with Scully and Mulder. They had
the X-Files.
Right, the X-Files, right. Well, they did an episode where they got really close to Area 51, and amazingly enough, it looked a lot like the craft that they saw overhead. It really did, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, it was scary, but it was also a sense of awe, like, whoa, what is this?
Sure.
So it was, I was like, whoa, what is this? And then I told George, because I noticed it before he did, and he was like to me, like, gee, I don't know what it is. And I wish we could have seen it longer. And we were driving along, and then we drove a little further, and all of a sudden, it blinked out like George said. But I've never seen a UFO before, so...
This is Peter speaking, Kathy. Could you tell whether anybody around you was also looking at the object?
Yeah, we have to...
That big.
Hold that, Peter, hold that question, will you? I got to do this break. We'll take our break. Kathy, and don't go away. We'll come back, and the question, I think, is relating to anybody else around you you saw or noted in the area who might have been observing this as well. So we'll come back and pursue this in just a couple minutes, so hang on.
Okay.